Looking at inheritance tax from another angle, what happens if you suddenly and surprisingly inherit a portfolio of property? How do you manage this without preparing for it? With me now is Tony Gimple from Less Tax For Landlords to explain. Well, Tony, thanks for joining us today. So, with every situation, the best thing is preparation, but this isn't always possible. So what happens if you do inherit a portfolio of properties that you weren't expecting? What's the first thing you should do?
Don't panic is the first thing. Look, when somebody dies, you have to go through a process called probate. It was the legal method of transferring from the dead to the living. If the value of the portfolio is greater than the amount you can give away free of inheritance tax, called the nil rate band, 325,000 for an individual or 650 for a married couple or those in a civil partnership, the excess will be taxed at 40%. So in a significant amount of money.
Even if it's a business, this portfolio is a sort of, well, maybe if it was a buy-to-let structure or that kind of thing?
Investment property, investment businesses such as buy-to-let, residential buy-to-lets, are treated as an investment business and are fully subject to inheritance tax.
But what if you don't have the money to pay then this 40%? How long do you have to pay it?
By the book, inheritance tax is payable within 90 days of death and before probate is granted. So you're in this catch-22. I can't sell the assets because I don't own them, but I've still got the tax bill to pay, and until I pay the tax bill, I can't sell the assets. Ouch. Yeah. However, the law can be practical, and HMRC, you talk with them, and you'll work out either a payment schedule, an extension of time, perhaps take a bridging loan, and then when everything is sorted, the tax will be paid. But you have to talk to HMRC and get it done properly.
Because I suppose the concern would be if you had tenants in this portfolio property with contracts, say a year, 2 years, and you couldn't kick them out, you couldn't sell it, you don't have the money to pay, it could be a headache.
Yes, of nth proportions.
Yeah.
And there is no off-the-shelf solution. The devil will be in the detail, the size of the tax bill, how the estate is structured, what negotiations you can enter into, and then working out how to sort it. And potentially, you've got to pay the IHT, you can't sell the property, you can't kick the tenant out. It could go down the rabbit hole.
Could you make some kind of deal with who you pay the tax to, for example, if there's rent coming in from this portfolio, you can pay off the inheritance tax over a long period of time, per se?
I mean, long is a relative term. It will depend on the structure of the estate, the size of the tax bill, which inspector you're dealing with, and how everyone can make a deal that works.
But losing somebody is obviously a really traumatic experience, of course, and you're not often in the right mind to deal with something that sounds pretty complicated. Are there people who can come and help you do this for you, so you don't have to deal with this in quite an emotional period of your life?
Absolutely. It all starts making sure you've got your will in place and all of the correct arrangements. And within that will, you will appoint executors, those charged to carry out your wishes after you've gone, which in almost every case should be immediate family, husband, wife, adult children, brother, sister. You rarely need a professional executor, a solicitor, or an accountant. In fact, that's where the term goodwill comes from. A solicitor would be appointed as your executor and charge you a significant amount of money. So when he or she would sell their practice, it's how many goodwills do you have? The goodwill being one where you've been appointed and can charge 3 to 5% of the value for what really is not rocket science. So what you'd say is appoint the family, and they should seek professional help for the bits they do not understand. However, HMRC are really good on this. You talk to them, they will help you. They cannot give you advice, clearly, but they can help you through the mechanical process, what forms to fill in, how to fill them in.
Okay, so finally another situation for you. Say that your parents or next of kin or whoever, they die and they leave behind a property, but they haven't made a will, but you know that they wanted to leave it to you. How do you even approach that situation?
The law in this area is practical. You have what are called the intestacy provisions, it being intestate, dying without a will. And depending on the values, effectively everything will go to spouse. Some will then go to children, and then eventually remote to issue. But without a will, it will go down the bloodline. And that's, so it could be brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, uncles, it's straight down the bloodline to the nth degree. I think we've all seen the programmes Heir Hunters, and they're chasing it forever. And that's what will happen if you don't have a will.
Well, Tony, it sounds very complicated, but you've shed some light on it, so I thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So definitely they should seek advice if they're in this situation, and like you said, not panic. There are ways to deal with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tony, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
That was Tony Gimple, who was talking about what you should do if you inherit a property portfolio and you haven't considered the inheritance tax previous to this.